The greatest boxing match of all time is Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier 3. Let me explain. To explain the third, we must go back to the first. Their first fight was billed as the fight of the century. Having in Madison Square Garden, both men were undefeated, and the fight lived up to the hype, going all 15 rounds, and even being decided in the 15th. Early in the 15th round, Joe Frazier would clip Muhammad Ali on his chin, knocking him to the ground and giving him the unanimous victory by decision. 3 years later, the two would meet in the sequel, with Muhammad Ali having his revenge, beating Joe Frazier by unanimous decision. 1 year later, the rubber match would be set, with Joe Frazier versus Muhammad Ali 3, the greatest boxing match of all time. Like the other two fights, this one would live up to the hype, pushing the two living legends to their absolute limit, with Joe Frazier landing 354 punches to Muhammad Ali's 443. Joe Frazier's eyes swelled so badly that he could hardly see anything, in fact giving him a left cataract after the fight. Muhammad Ali had stressed his body out so much that he was exhausted more than he had ever been in his entire life. After the 13th round, Joe Frazier's trainer was worried he would die in the ring. So to try to prevent that, he was going to throw in the towel, but Frazier protested. So his trainer gave him one final round, the 14th, to win the fight. The two men left everything they had in the 14th round. Muhammad Ali had no idea this was going to be his last round, but Joe Frazier did, and so he gave everything he had against Muhammad Ali. But the two warriors were left standing at the end of the 14th. Frazier's trainer made good on his word, threw in the towel, and Muhammad Ali was named the victor, raising his hands and then falling to his back as he was so exhausted he couldn't even stand. Ali would say after the fight, "Joe Frazier, I'll tell the world right now, brings out the best in me. I'm going to tell you, that's one hell of a man, and God bless him. Joe Frazier is the greatest fighter in the world, next to me." Top 10 Super Bowls of all time, Part 1, let's go. Coming in at number 10 is Super Bowl 13, Pittsburgh Steelers versus Dallas Cowboys. The craziest thing about this game was how much talent there was on this field at one time, with a total of 26 Hall of Famers as coaches, player, and owner on both teams. This game is infamously remembered as the Jackie Smith game, in which the tight end for the Cowboys dropped a wide-open touchdown pass that would give them a 7-point lead and maybe the victory. But it's also unfair to put it all on one man, and when the Cowboys had 3 turnovers in this one game. Coming in at number 9, Super Bowl 36, New England Patriots versus the St. Louis Rams. People have forgotten about this St. Louis Rams team. This was a team whose offense scored 500 points 3 seasons in a row and is by far the greatest offense of all time. But they were favored to win by 14 points against the New England Patriots in this game. But the script was flipped on them as they were down by 14 points going into the fourth. The Rams were able to mount a comeback, tying the game at 17 apiece. And with little more than a minute left in the game, Tom Brady led a drive, and with an advantage kick, won the game 20-17. Number 8, Super Bowl 54, Kansas City Chiefs versus San Francisco 49ers. People forget how good this San Francisco defense actually was. It made Aaron Rodgers look like a rookie in the NFC Championship game and held Patrick Mahomes only 10 points going in with only 6 minutes left in the game. But with those 6 minutes left, the Kansas City Chiefs offense rallied and scored 3 touchdowns in order to win the game 31-20. Number 7, Super Bowl 38, New England Patriots versus Carolina Panthers. This is the most underrated Super Bowl of all time. It had hard hits, big plays, and a last-minute comeback by the New England Patriots, who once again, Tom Brady drove down there and Adam Vinatieri hit the game-winning field goal in order to win the game 32-29. Top 10 Super Bowls of all time, Part 2. Let's go. Kicking off the list, we're going to have Super Bowl 34, St. Louis Rams versus Tennessee Titans. In this game, the St. Louis Rams would take a commanding 16-0 lead, but the Tennessee Titans would fight back, tying the game at 16 apiece. With the game tied, quarterback Kurt Warner for the St. Louis Rams threw a 73-yard touchdown pass to Isaac Bruce to take the 23-16 lead. History tends to repeat itself because in the 1954 NFL Championship game, the quarterback for the Rams at that time also completed a 73-yard touchdown pass to take a 24-17 lead and would eventually give him the victory. With little time left, the Tennessee Titans would try to mount a game-tying drive, and with 6 seconds left, quarterback Steve McNair would throw Dyson right up here and would come 1 yard short as time expired, giving the St. Louis Rams the improbable victory. Kurt Warner that season had the greatest quarterback season of all time, throwing for more than 40 touchdowns and being the only second quarterback to do that, winning NFL MVP, winning the Super Bowl, and winning the Super Bowl MVP all in one season. Number 5, Super Bowl 51. What hasn't been said about this game? The greatest comeback of all time, yes. But is it the greatest game? No. It's the greatest comeback, but as far as a competitive game, the Falcons in the beginning were destroying the Patriots, and eventually the Patriots obviously came back. The craziest thing was the statistics in this game. Tom Brady had 43 completions, which will probably never be broken, and the running back for the Patriots, James White, had 14 receptions. But the craziest statistic of all was the fact that the New England Patriots never had a lead for 1 second in this game and ended up winning it. Number 4, Super Bowl 32. Green Bay Packers versus Denver Broncos. The year prior, Brett Favre had led the Green Bay Packers to a Super Bowl victory and were expected to repeat. John Elway had taken the Denver Broncos to 3 Super Bowls in the previous years and had won 0, so the Packers were favored to win by 11 points. With little time left in the game, the Denver Broncos would have a 1-yard touchdown in order to take a 31-24 lead. The Green Bay Packers would not be denied, though, and tried to mount a game-tying comeback, but on 4th and 6, Brett Favre's pass would go incomplete, giving the Denver Broncos and John Elway his first Super Bowl victory ever. The crazy statistic about this game was how many 1-yard touchdown runs the Denver Broncos had. They had 4 separate 1-yard touchdown runs. In fact, all of their touchdowns were 1-yard touchdown runs. But it ended up giving the victory, so it worked. Top 10 Super Bowls of all time, Part 3. Do not let anybody fool you when they tell you they believe the New York Giants would actually have won this game. Patriots are 18-0. Nobody for 1 second besides the New York Giants actually believed that they would win that game. Patriots had the highest scoring offense of all time and a pretty good defense with Rodney Harrison, Teddy Bruschi, Richard Seymour, Asante Samuels. They had a great team going into that game, not just offense. But the New York Giants would not be intimidated. And the fact that people forget about is, yes, the Patriots were undefeated, but the New York Giants in that season only lost 1 away game, their first one. That was it. They won the rest of their away games, which is maybe the most insane statistic ever. The game started out how everybody thought it would, with the New England Patriots taking the 7-3 lead. But the New York Giants defensive line would not give up and absolutely destroyed a pretty good Patriots offensive line, putting constant pressure on Tom Brady. The game was a stalemate at 7-3 up until the beginning of the 4th quarter when the New York Giants hit up a touchdown, making it 10-7. But Tom Brady would not be denied having a game touchdown drive, going up 14-7 with 2 minutes and some change left. Eli Manning put his heart on the table, though, hit up David Tyree for the greatest play of all time because it was 2 plays. Eli Manning escaping a sack that Michael Vick would have trouble with, and hit up David Tyree for the helmet catch, and then hitting the game-winning touchdown to beat the New England Patriots and win the Super Bowl. Number 2, Super Bowl 43, Pittsburgh Steelers versus Arizona Cardinals. If nobody believed the New York Giants would actually win the Super Bowl, nobody even thought for 1 second that the Arizona Cardinals would actually even be in it, having a 9-7 record, and somehow being a 4th seed and having a home NFC Championship game. But they made it to the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh controlled the game, but on the final play of the 2nd quarter, Kurt Warner dropped back and threw a 100-yard pick 6 to the edge rusher, who was the Defensive Player of the Year, James Harrison, on the final play of the 2nd quarter going into the half. Pittsburgh again would control the game, but in the beginning of the 4th quarter, they had a 20-7 lead. But Arizona would score a touchdown, making it 20-14, and then get a safety, and then get another touchdown, scoring 16 unanswered points. Pittsburgh would not quit, though. With Ben Roethlisberger, they would hit up the game-winning touchdown with Santonio Holmes right there, the toe tap, the greatest touchdown catch of all time. Number 1, Super Bowl 49, New England Patriots versus Seattle Seahawks. The reason why this game is chosen for number 1 is because it had a good balance of everything. Good offense, great defense, everything you could really want as a football fan. The two teams had 2 different offensive philosophies in this game as well. The New England Patriots threw the ball pretty much every single down, while Seattle had a very consistent run game. The game never seemed really out of reach, though, too. Both teams are very consistent with how they played, and all 4 quarters could be watched and enjoyed. Tom Brady did Tom Brady things in this game, having a game-winning touchdown drive, going up 28-24. But with 2 minutes left, people thought Seattle had a chance. But they ended up throwing the ball instead of running it on the 1-yard line. History was made when Malcolm Butler intercepted it. Why is October the 10th month of the year? Weird question you might think I'm asking. Of course it's the 10th month of the year. Well, it has been. What do you mean? But what if I told you that October, octo, in Latin means 8? So why did the 8th month of the year now become the 10th? This all started with the original Roman calendar, which had only 10 months to it, leaving out about 55 days in the 2 winter months. So this caused a lot of confusion. So to remedy this, they were going to add on the 2 months. The man who commanded that they add on the extra 2 months was Julius Caesar during his dictatorship, naming the month of July graciously after himself. The 2nd month wasn't added until after Julius Caesar's assassination, when his adopted son and first emperor of Rome, Augustus Caesar, named the month of August after himself. Ranking all the Dragon Ball Z sagas. Let's go! Well, talk about starting off with a bang. First, you had Goku having a son, a brother, and finding out he's an alien from a warrior race who is, let's just say, not the nicest to its neighbors. But you also have a simple story with the Saiyans wanting to come and take the Dragon Balls and make a wish for immortality for themselves. The fights are great. The story's simple, but big emotions with all of it. And every time somebody dies, it felt like it was earned. It felt like a big moment. It didn't feel cheap. This also had the best fight with Goku vs. Vegeta 1, which ended in a tie. It didn't actually have a definitive winner. 10 out of 10. Well, where do you go from great? You go to outer space. And when you go to outer space, you have the best villain with Frieza, the funniest villains with the Ginyu Force, and the best moment, not only in Dragon Ball, but in anime history with Goku going Super Saiyan. This had everything you could really want from it. Great story, great fights, and not only that, but when you're on Namek, you never felt as if you were bored with it, even though it's just green and with the sun going all the time. That's how great this story really was. 10 out of 10. And this is the number one arc. Cell Saga. Now this is my personal favorite arc, as well as my favorite villain with Cell, and my introduction of my second favorite hero with Future Trunks. This really had everything for everybody. Every single character had a purpose to them. They weren't there just for show. They had an arc, they had something to overcome, and they had something great about each and every single one of the big five. To me, it felt really the peak of Dragon Ball. Height of the Super Saiyan, height of everything, as well as a big shock with Gohan overcoming and surpassing his father, as well as having to overcome and defeat Cell, who, even though we know Goku can almost always overcome the odds, it didn't feel that way with Gohan. He felt like everything was against him. And so when he beat Cell, it felt like that victory was earned. 10 out of 10. Well, they couldn't all be perfect, but this is still a pretty good arc. I mean, you had Goku going Super Saiyan 3, you had Majin Vegeta, Ultimate Gohan, and Fusion all in this one arc. Though Buu is not the greatest villain, he's okay. Mediocre, actually. It does hurt Gohan with having him be the strongest, and then he's not, and just having a stalemate with him. But the character who makes this arc is Vegeta, who after having a midlife crisis and sacrificing his soul to the devil, redeems himself and sacrifices his life for everyone who he loves. Then comes back and proves that he is a hero, and proves that he does not need that rivalry with Goku, that he has to just overcome his own obstacles and his own odds to be the strongest and the best man he can be. Ranking all the Dragon Ball Super sagas, let's go! Battle of the Gods. Now, it's still crazy to me that this thing actually came out, because I remember at the end of GT going, well, that's it, there's going to be no more Dragon Ball. And then they had this bad boy come out, and I was like, whoa, let's go. Beerus is great, Whis is cool, Super Saiyan Red or Super Saiyan God, he's just skinny with red hair. It felt like, well, if we're going to have this major transformation and go through this ritual, this is going to be it. The fight versus Goku versus Beerus was great. Vegeta, they made him look too much like a goofball, but he was still cool as usual. Good movie. Resurrection F. Now, I actually enjoyed this movie more than Battle of Gods. I thought the fight scene where it had the full Frieza army versus the Z Warriors is awesome. Gohan completely made him just a joke all over again. Horrible. Golden Frieza, actually cool. I actually liked the design. Super Saiyan Blue, probably could have done a little bit more better job explaining it. Goku vs. Frieza was amazing. The best, though, was Vegeta fighting Frieza and just mollywopping him. Biggest problem, though, was the ending. They might as well just slap Vegeta right in the face. Just give the Vegeta the win. You don't have to do this time loop, time hole, warp thing, whatever. It just really ruined it at the end. Universe 6. Now, this had some cool ideas to it. You know, Universe 6 is the exact opposite of Universe 7. Even though it actually wasn't. Like, everybody who was bad was good, but it really wasn't because Frieza's counterpart wasn't. There's a lot of potential to this. Hit and Kaba were amazing, but realistically, there was no tension with the fights. Though they were cool, there really wasn't anything towards this saga. Future Trunks Saga, or what it should be known as, is Goku Black Saga. Now, to me, this had the most potential out of any of the Dragon Ball Super sagas. You had Future Trunks, you had an evil Goku, you had a Renegade Kai, but Future Trunks really didn't have any story arc with him, though his Super Saiyan Rage was cool, and Goku Black wasn't actually Goku, it was just Zamasu taking over him, and Zamasu didn't really make sense why he was so angry at everybody. Like, he just saw two people kind of fight, and he thought, well, everybody needs to die. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Goku vs. Goku Black was amazing, and Vegeta beating the crap out of Goku Black was even better. And the ending was just completely terrible. I mean, literally the worst ending of any Dragon Ball Super or any Dragon Ball saga ever. Tournament of Power Saga. Now, to me, this is easily the best of all the Dragon Ball Super sagas. I mean, you had this, there really wasn't any story to it, but they had these long fights. Everybody had a chance to really show their stuff, though they could have used a training montage to get everybody back up to speed towards Goku and Vegeta. Cool fights. Jiren was great. though they probably could have done a better job explaining him. When Goku went Super Saiyan 5, Ultra Instinct, that was cool. Goku and Vegeta fighting together. And the ending was cool, even though everybody kind of knew, alright, they're just going to wish everybody back. That's just what they do. Still, great saga. Dragon Ball GT, oh, I know everybody's going to say, oh, it sucks, it's so terrible. But you know what? We're going to give it a fair shake. Look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and see what we can find out about this show. Let's go! So one of the big things why people hate this saga so much is this opening. It is the worst saga, arc, whatever, in all of Dragon Ball history. It wasn't that bad of an idea, like, oh, we're going to have the Black Star Balls, and they're going to go into space now, we're going to make it meaningful to find the Dragon Balls. That's a cool idea. Biggest problem was the execution. You had the trio of Goku, Pan, and Trunks, which weren't that interesting, and you had the major issue of having no tension. Goku never even went Super Saiyan 3. You also had the villains, which were all terrible. Just a big mess. Well, you go from bad to great. I actually love this saga. I thought it was pretty interesting what they did with having all the Z Warriors and Earth turn evil and be under Baby's spell. It took one of the big strengths of having all these massive amount of heroes and then turning them evil, turning them against Goku. And there was a lot of tension in this, the exact opposite of the former. Baby beat Goku's butt twice. Not once, twice. And it wasn't until he went Super Saiyan 4 that he actually could do anything against him. Great arc. The only big issue I had with it, though, was Baby was not a sympathetic villain. He should have been. His home world and his race were destroyed by the Saiyans, yet he was this evil, maniacal, laughing, Saturday morning cartoon villain. Really had a lot of potential. Could have reached it at the end and been a perfect arc, but it just came a little bit short. Super 17 Saga, another interesting idea, but one that kind of falls flat in its face. You had Hell opening and the Z-Warriors having to try to close it. You had Android 17 return, which is, he's all of a sudden super evil, but he had this cool transformation towards Super 17 or a fusion, whatever you want to call with it. The biggest problem, though, is the Z-Warriors just got their butts kicked by Super 17 and left it wide open for only Goku to try to do anything. That's another major issue, is Goku's the only one who could defeat any of these villains, and it really leaves everybody else on the wayside. Shadow Dragon arc. Now, this is another one with a great and interesting idea. Like, the Dragon Balls are now evil, and you have to fight all these boss dragon characters. That's a cool concept. That's a cool design. But the problem is, all the dragons except for Sin, Nova, and Ice all suck. And Goku was the only one who fought any of them, or who fought most of them, and defeated almost all of them. So, everybody else got moved to the wayside, and it was cool seeing Vegeta turn Super Saiyan 4. That was great. And seeing Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta was even cooler. The ending was perfect. Just absolutely amazing. That ending, it'll probably bring a tear to your eye every single time you see it. Because it did feel like the end of Dragon Ball. So all in all, good. Ranking all the original Dragon Ball sagas. Let's go! The Emperor Pilaf saga. What a great way to start. You have everything you ever want. Action, adventure, comedy. This definitely leans a lot more into the gag comedy, but it's still a great saga and an awesome opening to Dragon Ball. Going from good to great, you have the original World Tournament saga. The thing I love the most about this is the training that they had to do originally. They had to earn their spots with it. Goku was already a very strong kid, but this taught him discipline and what it means to be a martial artist. Awesome, great comedy with the fights. Awesome. But I also love the most is the final fight with Goku versus Master Roshi. You thought, okay, Goku has to win this one. But no, he loses. And I'm glad that he lost because it taught him a valuable lesson. That there is somebody always stronger and better than you. And that you have to always keep training. And that's what Master Roshi wanted to teach him. To never be satisfied. And to keep pushing his limits. Talk about a one-man army. Goku ends up defeating the Red Ribbon Army, which was bent on world domination. The best fight in this whole thing was Goku versus Tao Pai Pai, which was the first serious villain in all of Dragon Ball. This was a great one. Goku ends up losing the first, winning the second. Great job. The Tien Shinhan saga. Now, this is another escalation, and to me, the first perfect Dragon Ball saga that they had. This another had everything they could ever want. Goku ends up training and getting even stronger, pushing his own limits, and having the first real rival with Tien Shinhan. Now, again, you think this is going to go the certain way with Goku ends up defeating everybody, and at the final, he ends up fighting Tien, but he ends up losing. Again, another humbling lesson for Goku. The fight with Goku versus Tien, though, 10 out of 10. Amazing. Amazing animation, amazing choreography. The thing I like the most is, it wasn't just a power-up saga. This truly leaned into the martial arts, which the Dragon Ball was heavy into and was its biggest strength. King Piccolo saga. Now this is to me where things got very serious with Dragon Ball. It always up to that point had some serious moments, but nothing as serious as Demon King Piccolo. Krillin was dead, Master Roshi had died, and it was only up to Goku as Tien had actually gotten beaten by King Piccolo. So it was up to him to save the world. And save the world he did. And again, through obstacles, training, everything you ever want from a saga you had with this. An awesome villain too with Demon King Piccolo, who who probably ranks number 3. Piccolo Jr. saga. Yes, this is, to me, I know I talk about this a lot, but it genuinely is the perfect saga. There's really nothing you can change about this one to make it better because it's already perfect. I mean, everything you want. Goku's rematch against Tien where he ends up winning. Goku fighting Chi-Chi and winning. And remember, he has to marry her because he made a promise. And then his fight with Piccolo is the best fight in all of Dragon Ball. To me, this is absolutely perfect. The perfect send-off and ending and going towards Z. You know what time of year it is? Early October, which means they're already putting out Christmas stuff. So in order to celebrate the holiday, I thought I'd look at the real St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas. Yes, the man who inspired the big guy who says he's always watching you. This also goes out to all the haters who say Santa Claus is not real. St. Nicholas was born in 270 AD in the eastern province of the Roman Empire in modern-day Turkey. He was born to an affluent family and was seen as a miracle child. But he was not a greedy man, as he often gave to charity and was very charitable with his money. The most famous story of St. Nicholas giving came when a father of 3 daughters fell in hard times. In order to keep the family afloat, St. Nicholas gave a bag of gold for each one of the daughters, even throwing one of them through the chimney, which is where you get the myth of St. Nicholas coming down the chimney bringing you gifts. Now we've talked about the most famous, we're probably going to have to talk about the most infamous moment of St. Nicholas's life. Now, you might take this one with a grain of salt, as there's no real definitive proof, but it's one that people talk about enough to where it has to be talked about once again. During the Council of Nicaea, St. Nicholas became so infuriated with the leader of the Arians, Arius, that he ran up to him and slapped him in the face. Yes, Santa Claus kept that left hand strong. St. Nicholas lived to be the age of 73 and has been made a saint by all Christian denominations that accept saints. Goku versus Vegeta. I think most people misremember this fight, and maybe even myself, as I've heard many times in my comments. So I want to do a breakdown and look at this great fight and take a look at what really happened with it. So let's go! The fight starts out with Vegeta absolutely dominating Goku. He has no chance. Even going Kaioken times 2 and doubling his strength, he is still nothing compared to Vegeta. It isn't until Goku goes Kaioken times 3 that the table is turned. Goku actually starts dominating Vegeta, and this infuriates him to the point where he's willing to destroy the entire planet. Vegeta flies up to the sky above, shooting down the Gallic gun, wanting to destroy the Earth and Goku, pushing himself even further than his natural limits. Goku matches him blow for blow with the Kamehameha, going Kaioken times 3 with it. The beam struggle is even, and some of the best imagery in all of Dragon Ball, but Goku pushes his body even further, going Kaioken times 4 and defeating Vegeta in the beam struggle. Even after all of that, Vegeta is still not defeated, turning into a giant ape, increasing his strength times 10. Goku, on the other hand, his body is completely spent, as his muscles are spasming, and he has very little energy left as he's pushed himself too far past his own limits. So he tries to power up the Spirit Bomb, but is caught by Vegeta and crushed in his hands. Vegeta at this point, if it's a true one-on-one fight, has won. Goku has no chance. He can't even move. He can't do anything. Vegeta would have absolutely killed him and won this fight, but Krillin, Yajirobe, and Gohan show up and help save Goku. So yes, in a fair 100% fight, Vegeta would have actually won this fight. No questions about it. Goku had no chance. He would have died. It was only because his friends saved him that he was able to live. After the rest of the Z-Warriors show up, Yajirobe cuts off Vegeta's tail, they hit him with the Spirit Bomb, and Gohan crushes him as a giant ape. And finally, Vegeta is put down. The thing I liked most about this fight was how much they threw at Vegeta, and he still kept coming. They hit him with the Spirit Bomb, which killed Kid Buu. They hit him with the Beam Struggle and won, but he still kept coming, which killed Cell. And Goku even used a new transformation to try to defeat him, which killed Frieza, and all of that happened to Vegeta, yet he still kept coming. To me, it's just amazing his endurance and his will to keep fighting. One of the most interesting things about this fight was at the end, Krillin grabs Yajirobe's sword and was going to stab Vegeta before he flew off into space, but Goku stopped him, saying he wants to fight him one more time, one-on-one, prove that he can beat him on his own. So yes, after all this and people misremembering everything, Vegeta technically should have won this fight. In honor of Tom Brady getting a roughing the passer penalty called for him, that is the exact same way Tua got injured but not called for him, and Chris Jones being the first player in NFL history to get a roughing the passer penalty while holding on to the football, I thought I'd go ahead and do a controversial list of the top 3 dirtiest players in NFL history. Now when I say dirtiest, I don't mean hard hitters or trash talkers. I mean guys who will go out there and literally try to hurt you and break the rules. So, let's go! Number 3, Conrad Dobler. Now, it wasn't the punches, the kicks, spitting, stomping on guys, shoving them from behind. That was his most infamous moves. But it was a thing called a leg whip, in which he would fat man roll over and kick up his leg to block defenders. His philosophy was pretty simple. It was make the guys on defense so mad that they stopped worrying about who had the ball on offense and started worrying about him, making him the giant target of all defenses in the NFL. But his most infamous moment came for me when he punched Mean Joe Green in the face. And if you've ever seen Mean Joe Green, that's one big dude. Number 2, Vontaze Burfict. Never have I seen a guy given so many opportunities and wasted every single one of them. Whether that be hitting Antonio Brown right in the head, celebrating after Le'Veon Bell broke his ankle, or hitting guys who didn't even have the ball right in the leg. This guy racked up over $5 million in penalties and just never could figure it out and eventually had to leave the NFL, even when he still could play. Number 1, Bill Romanowski. If you know anything about dirty players in the NFL, you know that this guy had to be number 1 on the list. Whether it be spitting in J.J. Stokes' face, punching Tony Gonzalez in the head, breaking Shannon Sharp's elbow, and admitting during a fumble to breaking the opposing running back's thumb in the bottom of a pile, this guy was all around dirty as a pig in slop. Bill's most infamous play came not during a game, but during a practice, in which he punched his own teammate in the eye so hard it broke his eye socket during an alleged roid rage incident. They eventually had to settle out of the court. In honor of Tom Brady getting a roughing the passer penalty called for him, that is the exact same way Tua got injured but not called for him, and Chris Jones being the first player in NFL history to get a roughing the passer penalty while holding on to the football, I thought I'd go ahead and do a controversial list of the top 3 dirtiest players in NFL history. Now, when I say dirtiest, I don't mean hard hitters or trash talkers. I mean guys who will go out there and literally try to hurt you and break the rules. So, let's go! Number 3, Conrad Dobler. Now, it wasn't the punches, the kicks, spitting, stomping on guys, shoving them from behind. That was his most infamous moves. But it was a thing called a leg whip, in which he would fat man roll over and kick up his leg to block defenders. His philosophy was pretty simple. It was make the guys on defense so mad that they stopped worrying about who had the ball on offense and started worrying about him, making him the giant target of all defenses in the NFL. But his most infamous moment came for me when he punched Mean Joe Green in the face. And if you've ever seen Mean Joe Green, that's one big dude. Number 2, Vontaze Burfict. Never have I seen a guy given so many opportunities and wasted every single one of them. Whether that be hitting Antonio Brown right in the head, celebrating after Le'Veon Bell broke his ankle, or hitting guys who didn't even have the ball right in the leg. This guy racked up over $5 million in penalties and just never could figure it out and eventually had to leave the NFL, even when he still could play. Number 1, Bill Romanowski. If you know anything about dirty players in the NFL, you know that this guy had to be number 1 on the list. Whether it be spitting in J.J. Stokes' face, punching Tony Gonzalez in the head, breaking Shannon Sharp's elbow, and admitting during a fumble to breaking the opposing running back's thumb in the bottom of a pile, this guy was all around dirty as a pig in slop. Bill's most infamous play came not during a game, but during a practice, in which he punched his own teammate in the eye so hard it broke his eye socket during an alleged roid rage incident. They eventually had to settle out of the court. Sugar Ray Robinson, the greatest pound-for-pound boxer of all time. The man not only had a smooth name, but smooth footwork. With the grace of a dancer and the power of a heavyweight, his style inspired Muhammad Ali. Sugar Ray would start his career 40-0 before losing to Jake LaMotta, the Raging Bull. He would go on to win 89 fights before finally losing again. During the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Sugar Ray would punch, and punch Jake LaMotta before finally the referee had to go in and stop the fight. Jake LaMotta never touched the canvas, but Sugar Ray never stopped hitting him either. By the end of his career, Sugar Ray would win 174 fights, third most all time, winning 109 by knockout, and only losing 19 fights in his career. By the time Sugar Ray finally hung up the gloves, he said he never enjoyed boxing, always thought of it as barbaric, and treated it as a business, but nobody was as successful at it as he was. Top 3 ways to fix Dragon Ball Super. No, I'm not a hater of Dragon Ball Super. In fact, I think there is a ton of potential with it, but it's not quite reaching it. And I never like to complain about something without offering a solution. And these are 3 things that can help. Number 3, move past the end of Z. After Dragon Ball Superhero, this may be the direction they're currently going. One of the biggest problems with Super was a lack of tension. And that lack of tension came from it either had to go towards the ending of Z, which we already knew was going to happen, or it had to come up with a completely different ending, which would only serve to make the fans super pissed. Either way, you know the ending, and either way, you're not on the edge of your seat the way you might have been during Z, because what's going to happen? I have no idea. You know what's going to happen. Number 2, transformation. The biggest problem with all the transformations is it's just a hair color change. Say what you want to about Super Saiyan 4, but at least they decided to take a risk and change up the concept of what it means to be a Super Saiyan. Also, a lack of build-up. Besides Super Saiyan God and Ultra Instinct, there was no build-up to any of these character transformations that anybody like Goku, Vegeta, or Gohan has had so far. You look at the original Super Saiyan transformation, you had a lot of build-up and a lot of earning it from every single character. They all earned it, and they had that build-up towards when they finally went Super Saiyan. You felt it, you enjoyed it, and it was something that you would never forget. With Super, it feels very shoehorned in there. Like, they tell you about it, and then they do it, but it doesn't feel like that natural build-up towards it, and towards that culmination of, okay, yes, I finally achieved it. Number 1, Beerus. No, I do not hate Beerus. In fact, I think he's the best Dragon Ball Super character they have introduced. During Battle of Gods, though, they said, oh, he's only at 7% of his strength. Then it's at 1%. Then it's at 1% of 1%. The biggest problem is this moving goalpost that they constantly have with him. That he is something that, okay, maybe they've achieved it now. Well, not actually. He's only at 1%. Maybe they've achieved it now. No, he's not actually at 1%. This cheapens how far the characters have actually grown with their strength and with their character. Now, to me, I honestly think they need to have a rematch with Goku versus Beerus. And Goku needs to win. And then Beerus can actually have some tension with his character because now he is defeated. Now he has to actually work hard. He can't just lay around and just have everything be very relaxed and chilled with him. He has to grow as a character. I think it's nothing but a beneficial thing for him to actually lose and to actually become a part of the Z Warriors and grow in strength. Top 10 Batman movies of all time, part 1. Number 10, The Dark Knight Rises. I did not like this film really at all. That is why it is so low on the list. I didn't like Batman's journey, even though I should have. I didn't like the fact that he gave up on Alfred, which was always stupid to me. And I didn't like Catwoman that much. She was okay, but she wasn't anything great. But to me, the man who absolutely made this film was Bane. His physicality, his seriousness, and wanting to break the bat absolutely made him in this film. He was strong, he was intimidating, and he did not quit. Everything was great with Bane, until you found out that he was just a simp for Talia al Ghul. How terrible. Number 9, Batman v Superman. This is a terrible Superman film, but a pretty good Batman movie. Ben Affleck is actually my favorite Batman out of everyone. He plays the fake Batman when he's Bruce Wayne at a party. He plays the real Bruce Wayne when he's with Alfred. And he plays Batman with that physicality, that anger, that rage. And to me, he does all 3 aspects perfectly. The best scene in this whole film, and probably the best Batman fight scene of all time, was the warehouse fight. It felt real with the physicality, but it felt spectacular enough to be on film. It was just absolutely great. Number 8, Batman Returns. I feel always really perplexed when it comes to the Tim Burton Batman films. There's aspects that I really love. I feel like the atmosphere is hit or miss. It feels good, but sometimes it gets a little too cartoonish for me. Penguin, I gotta admit, I kind of felt the same way. Some aspects I liked, some aspects I didn't. Catwoman, though, she absolutely steals the show and is the best character in this whole film. Amazing. Tim Burton must really love Halloween and Christmas and putting them together, and I can't blame him because I do too. Though I think this film is a bit of a mixed bag, the ending to it is absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10, gives you the chills every single time you watch it. Number 7, Batman 1989. To be honest with everybody, I never actually liked Michael Keaton as Batman. He always felt weird and wonky to me, and he didn't feel like a guy who would actually put on a cape and kick people's asses. Jack Nicholson absolutely steals it as the Joker. Every scene he eats like a piece of candy. He's just amazing, fun, awesome. Don't let this movie being so low on the list disregard it as a great film. It is, and it's at the groundwork for every Batman film that would come after it. I'm not wearing hockey pads. Part 2. Number 6, Zack Snyder's Justice League. You know, when I first saw the original Justice League cut, I literally fell asleep. Literally in the chair snoring. We had to leave because it was so bad. This, on the other hand, I literally fell in love with. I got HBO for a whole month just so I could watch this one movie. Though I think they easily could have cut probably an hour, hour and a half out of it and it'd been a better movie. Not gonna lie. Everything else about this movie just felt right. All the characters felt like who they were supposed to be. And Batman felt like Batman. Great. The Batman, number 5. This has the best opening of any Batman film ever. This first 10, 15 minutes, amazing. But the longer it goes on, the more the plot kind of loses itself. And I can definitely tell there was studio interference that ruined a lot of this movie. It was way too long. They could have easily cut 30 to 40 minutes out of this movie, and it would have been better, smoother, and just a much more cleaner film. The Penguin was great. He was funny. He was everything he should have been. I was honestly very disappointed with the Riddler. I felt like they were going to do a calmer, cooler, collected, always 2 steps ahead of Batman type of character. Instead, what I felt like he was playing too much into the Joker. Just going crazy, shouting, being over the top. I felt it was super unnecessary. I did absolutely love Batman in this movie. They completely got rid of his fake persona. And they just had the real Bruce Wayne and the real Batman, which is always cool to me. I love the physicality of his character, how angry he would get, and I wish they played more into that over-the-top, very emotional, very young Batman. I feel like that could have made this performance even better. Number 4, Return of the Joker. Yes, animated films totally count, and if you have not seen this one, you're doing yourself a total disservice. I love this film. I grew up with this film. The Joker, this is to me his definitive ending and story. The story of the Joker and his return to Gotham after 40 years is great. To me, it's definitive Robin, definitive Batman Beyond, and definitive Bruce Wayne. Everything you can really want out of an animated film you have here. Great mystery, great action, just all around a thriller. You want to know how I got these scars? Number 3, Batman Begins. Easily the most overlooked of all the Batman films. And with smart superhero films obsessing over origin stories, they always forget about this one. And that was, frankly, the most perfect origin story of any superhero ever. The pacing is perfect, the objectives are clear, and you feel at the very end that he went from being a man to becoming Batman. I love Ra's al Ghul in this movie. I even love Scarecrow, even though I feel as if he's a bit shoehorned in there. If it was just Ra's al Ghul in this film, it would have been better. But it sucks to say that about Scarecrow because he is the most underrated of all Batman's villains, and he's never really gotten a true, proper film. Number 2, Mask of the Phantasm. A lot of people have never heard about this film, and that's a shame because this is an amazing Batman film. This to me is what Batman Returns should have been. Very similar beats for both of these films. The mystery of the Phantasm is great. Everything about this movie is just paced perfectly. The animation is crystal clear. It's just amazing. Add on the elements of Batman Year 1, and sprinkle on top of that a bit of kerosene and fire that is known as the Joker, and you have an amazing film. I was going to say that Batman Begins was the best Batman film, at least as far as a story just about him. But this honestly takes the cake. It's just perfect in every single sense of the word. Number 1, The Dark Knight. Of course it had to be this. This is the best Batman movie, as well as one of the best movies of all time. Heath Ledger gave the greatest acting performance ever, not just in comic books, ever. This is a standard of film that's still not been reached by any other superhero movie to this day. I still remember being 12 years old and watching this movie when it first came out, and I did not move, we did not think. I was just stunned with how amazing it was for 2.5 hours. It was that great. The unfortunate thing about this is both Two-Face and Batman seem to be forgotten in this film. The unfortunate thing about this movie, though, is both Batman and Two-Face get left behind as far as the Joker. Everybody remembers him and how great he was, and he was. He's the shining light in this film. But Batman kind of gets left behind the plot, and Two-Face's performance, which isn't as great, but just right behind the Joker's, is also amazing as well. The Book of Jonah, or the Book of Jonas, depending upon the translation. God commands that Jonah go to the city of Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, and preach to the people to repent of their wickedness. Jonah refuses and gets on a ship going the exact opposite direction which God has commanded him. While on the ship, God creates a terrible storm. The men figure out that Jonah is the cause of the storm, pick him up and throw him overboard into the sea, in which he is devoured by a large sea creature, perhaps a whale. If you've seen the movie Pinocchio, this may seem very familiar to you. For 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah is stuck within the belly of the beast before he finally accepts God's offer. Jonah is spat out onto the land, in which he finally makes his journey to Nineveh. Once in the city, Jonah preaches to the people, in which they repent of their sinful ways. After this, Jonah is angry, and he asks God to take his life, in which God asks him if he should not have spared the city of Nineveh and all the people within it. I've always viewed this book as, if you hate someone, or unfortunately a group of people, that you must be willing to help to save their souls, as God has tried to save ours. For if he is willing to forgive us of our sins, and help us repent, then we must offer that same hand to somebody else, even if we hate them. The greatest guarantee in NFL history. No, not Joe Namath's, but Jimmy Johnson's. In 1992, the Dallas Cowboys would beat the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. They would go on to win the Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills. In 1993, he was looking to duplicate his success, having to go against the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and the winner would go face the Buffalo Bills in that year's Super Bowl. While at dinner before the NFC Championship game, he heard a talk radio station talking about who's going to win the game. Is it San Francisco? Is it Dallas? Having had enough of hearing the conversation, he decided to call in himself. And when he called in, he told them, "We will win the ball game." Told him to write it in 3-inch bold headline, let everybody in the world know it. Dallas was going to win this game. The NFL was abuzz at hearing this news, and San Francisco did not take this too kindly, even having a fight before the game. But during the game, it would be the Dallas Cowboys who absolutely manhandled the 49ers, beating them 38-21 and making good on Jimmy Johnson's guarantee. The reason why this is the greatest guarantee in NFL history is simply because head coaches try to avoid billboard material at all costs. And then Jimmy Johnson was the only coach I've ever seen to flat out tell them, write it down, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, and then went out there and made it happen. Top 10 Dragon Ball Z movies of all time, Part 1. Let's go! Number 10, Battle of God. Don't let it fool you by being so low on the list. This is a great movie, one you should watch. Beerus is a great character, though to me he was never a great villain, because I never thought he was serious about wanting to kill everybody and destroy everything. Because if he really wanted to, he could have easily done it with a snap of his finger. He never wanted to do that. I also thought the fights were great in this. I wish there was more, but it was more focused on the story than it was the actual fights with it, though the fights were great in this movie. I thought the My Bulma scene was perfect, just amazing, perfect for Vegeta's character. Though I did not like Super Saiyan God, the concept and design. If you're going to call it a transformation I thought it needs to be really extra with it. It wasn't, though I think it's cool. I just think for Super Saiyan God, if it's going to be that name, it needs to be something more extravagant than just purely being red. Number 9, Cooler's Revenge. I remember being a kid and renting this movie all the time from Blockbuster. Could have saved a few dollars if I just went ahead and bought it, but you didn't know when you were a kid, you didn't really think about it. But I always had fun watching it. I thought it was a cool story. I thought it was really intense. I love the anger at the end that you actually feel towards Cooler. That all this stuff that they've done to the Z Warriors and Earth, it's finally time for Goku to step up and take up the plate and fight back against him. I always liked Cooler, maybe a little bit more than Frieza. He always felt very calm, very relaxed, a more chill version, an older brother of Frieza. To me, I like the story with him, even though it's just a copy and paste off the Namek Saga. The animation was great. A cool movie. Awesome. Number 8, Dragon Ball Super Broly. I still remember hearing that we're going to get a new movie after the Tournament of Power saga, and this new Saiyan was going to come, and I never thought it was going to be this ancient Saiyan, it was going to be this cool battle, and then when they said it was Broly, everybody had their minds blown, and mine was included in that. I thought the first half of this movie was a little bit slow. I did not like the retcons when it came to the Saiyans being test tube babies. I thought that was stupid. I thought that was weird. A little slow in the beginning, but when you finally got to the fights with them, Goku and Vegeta fighting Broly, that was amazing. Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta versus Broly was a 10 out of 10 fight. Amazing. Again, don't let this be fooled by being so low on the list. This is a great movie. There's a lot of great Dragon Ball Z movies out there. Number 7, World's Strongest. This is another nostalgia movie for me. I remember having the DVD version of this one, this exact cover, and watching the Pioneer, Ocean Dub, whatever it was called, all the time. It was amazing. This and Terminator 2 were the big inspirations for the Android saga that would come. It was just an amazing original plot, which most of the Dragon Ball Z movies are not. They're usually just copy and pasted off the show or events that already happened with it before. The choreography and the fighting and the villains they went against, 10 out of 10. This is an amazing martial arts movie and one you should definitely check out. Top 10 Dragon Ball Z movies of all time, Part 2. Let's go! Number 6, Fusion Reborn. To me, this and Wrath of the Dragon are the two most beautifully animated films of all the Dragon Ball Z movies. It isn't that complicated when it comes to the story, but that's okay. It's mostly about the action, and it's mostly a retelling of the Majin Buu saga. While in hell, one of the workers gets infected by demonic energy, turning him into a playful yet chaotic creature, who then once he is defeated, turns into a pink, monstrous, slimmer creature who is defeated by fusion. Sound familiar? Janemba only says his name the entire film, but it's okay because he's an awesomely designed character. Even though he is a ripoff of Majin Buu, he's still fun, he's still cool, and the fights, this is what makes this film. The fights are amazing. Goku and Vegeta having to come together, figure out their differences, and work together makes this film. Number 5, Wrath of the Dragon. If anything, this and Fusion Reborn are two halves of almost the same movie. Like I said, they have the two most beautiful animated films of all Dragon Ball. But where Fusion Reborn lacked with the story, this made up for the story. Now, this had great fights. These fights weren't bad in Wrath of the Dragon, but they weren't the main driving force of it. Tapion is a super memorable character in this, and I love his relationship with Trunks, mimicking that of a brother relationship that he had with future Gohan in the other timeline. Tapion's relationship not only with Trunks, but dealing with the Hirudegan monster that's locked inside of him, made him a three-dimensional and dynamic character. Number 4, The Tree of Might. Well, we're talking about nostalgia for me, we're talking about this movie as well. This is another one I had on DVD when I was a young kid. I used to watch it all the time. I remember that Pioneer, not the Funimation, but the Ocean dub. That's the one I remember the most with this movie. You also have the original and better Goku Black with Turles, the exact same design as Goku, and the exact same feel of having an evil Goku fighting against the Z Warrior. It's largely a retelling of the Saiyan saga, but with the Tree of Might added on top of it, which is literally devouring the energy from the Earth. This is a great film, and you should definitely check out The Tree of Might. Top 10 Dragon Ball Z movies of all time, Part 3, let's go! Number 3, the original Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan. I always hate when they say Broly has no character towards him. He's just a big muscle head. That's not actually true. Broly does have depth to him. Broly was attempted to be X'd by one of the King's assassins. He was thrown out and left for dead with his father. And his planet blew up on the first day of him being born. All this trauma built up in him created an intense amount of violence that he takes out on others, giving him depth. Yes, he's not a three-dimensional character who's going to sit there and cry and be super emotional, but he does have depth in him. He's just not a big musclehead. The fight scenes in this movie are amazing. The Z-Warriors throw absolutely everything they have at Broly, and he just keeps coming. They did kind of find a BS way to beat him in the end. This is still a great movie, and definitely worth your time and a spot on this list. Number 2, Bardock, the father of Goku. I hate the retcon they did with this character, that Bardock's a good guy, that he sent Goku off himself. When in this original cut, Bardock really didn't care about Goku in the beginning, and he was a mass murderer who destroyed entire planets without a single care. But what goes around comes around, and when Bardock finds visions of his home planet being destroyed by Frieza, he attempts to have one final stand against the man and unite the Saiyans. I hate to sound like a total weeb when I say this, but go check out the original Japanese dub of this film. It's 10 times better than the English. Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, even said this was his favorite film and cried at the end of it. And if you see the ending of this movie, you definitely understand how emotional and impactful it is. Great film. Number 1, The History of Trunks. I have to talk about nostalgia on this list and how big of an impact it does play on me, but I have to admit, this does have a big nostalgia factor, but when you watch it today, it still holds up. This is easily the darkest of any of the Dragon Ball media, with Goku's death to a heart virus at the very beginning, and the death of all the Z-Warriors at the hands of the androids, all before the intro. The only ones left to stand and fight are Gohan and Trunks. This easily has the most emotional scene out of all the Dragon Ball media. I'm not going to spoil what it is. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It isn't all dark though, I promise. There is hope at the end, and this definitely deserves the number 1 spot on the list. Was Jeffrey Dahmer serious about being a Christian? Shout out to What Do You Memes channel on YouTube for much of the information on this video. Since the new TV show has come out, most people are now familiar with the horrific crimes committed by Jeffrey Dahmer. During his time in prison, his father would send him creationist literature, which ended up changing his mind on evolution and made him interested in Christianity, and eventually he was baptized. He would spread the gospel to other inmates, and even become angry after being interviewed and not being able to talk about his new faith in Father, Son, Holy Spirit. He would do this all the way up until his murder in 1994. It's understandable not to believe Jeffrey Dahmer and to be very hesitant to take any of his words as truth, as he was a master manipulator in his life, as well as the pain he caused to his victims and the victims' families. We must also remember that for as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. James 2:26. Was Jeffrey Dahmer serious? Well, after everything I've researched, I have to say it's definitely possible. But in the end, only God can truly judge our souls. Most Christians would hate the fact that a man who committed such evil acts could possibly be saved. But we must also remember that a man named Paul was saved as well. During his life, Saul killed an untold number of Christians, but after being confronted by Jesus Christ, changed his name to Paul, and by the end of it, converted to Christianity, and even was martyred for it. He also wrote much of the New Testament, and if a man who did such evil deeds as he did can be saved, then yes, anybody can be as well. The time Mike Tyson bit off a piece of Evander Holyfield's ear. For a lot of older people, they probably remember this moment, but if young people don't even remember Jeffrey Dahmer, they definitely don't remember this moment, which is the most controversial moment in boxing history. After spending 3 years in prison, Mike Tyson makes his return to boxing in 1995. 1 year later, he would win back the World Heavyweight Championship. After years of chasing Tyson, Evander Holyfield would finally get his chance to fight him for the World Heavyweight Championship in 1996. To that point in his career, Mike Tyson looked absolutely invincible, having only lost the one fight to Buster Douglas, which most people considered a fluke. During the fight, Evander Holyfield would squat down, even though he was taller than Tyson, and give him a slight headbutt. Tyson would complain to the referee, but to no avail. In the 11th round, Evander Holyfield would win the fight by TKO. The rematch was set in 1997, and Mike Tyson would demand a new referee, which he was given. History would repeat itself in this fight, as the exact same thing that happened in the first fight happened in this fight. Tyson would complain to the referee over and over again, but to no avail. Tyson got so angry in that fight that he bit Evander Holyfield twice. Tyson would be disqualified for biting. He would be barred from boxing in the United States for 2 years and be fined a maximum penalty at that time of $3 million. Tyson would be angry at himself, not just because he lost, but because he lost his composure in this fight. And that's something a warrior can never do. Top 10 NFL quarterbacks of all time. Part 1. Let's go! Number 10, Terry Bradshaw. It really came down to Terry or Roger for the number 10 spot on the list. But to me, Terry just barely edges out in the victory in that. 4 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and 1 NFL MVP. Terry started out his career looking like a total NFL draft bust. By the end of it, he had a bust of himself in the NFL Hall of Fame. Having the nickname of the Blonde Bomber, he earned that by having picture-perfect throws deep, which helped him win 4 NFL championships. Number 9, Brett Favre. You live by the Favre, you die by the Favre. Ending his career with the most passing yards, passing touchdowns, and passing interceptions. The man was the definition of a gunslinger, having big games and also having terrible games. You never had more fun watching any other man, and nobody drove you more insane than this man. Winning 3 NFL MVPs, but only 1 Super Bowl. Yeah, most people are shocked that he only won 1. The man was a legend. And yes, if he ends up starring in The Longest Yard 2, I will end up going to see it. Number 8, John Elway. It pains me to put this man on the list, but I cannot deny his greatness. I just hate him the fact that he always beat my favorite team. The man was a gunslinger, but he was also top 3 for most clutch quarterbacks in NFL history. He also led more 2-minute drills than most men can count. Even though he was one of the most clutch quarterbacks of all time, many people saw him as a man who couldn't win the big game, going to 3 out of 4 Super Bowls and losing them all. The man had a Cinderella ending for his career, winning 2 Super Bowls in his last 2 seasons, and in fact leaving with winning a Super Bowl MVP. Number 7, Aaron Rodgers. If you ever got frustrated playing somebody in Madden because they ran out of the pocket and threw a 60-yard dime touchdown pass, imagine that in real life. That was Aaron Rodgers. Having won 4 NFL MVPs, 1 Super Bowl MVP, and can make any throw at any time, any place, the man was a machine. Watch his highlight tape to understand the meaning of pinpoint accuracy. It's there in every throw. Top 10 quarterbacks of all time. Part 2. Let's go! Number 6, Johnny Unitas. Now I know a lot of people are thinking, what are you doing putting the Stone Age quarterback on this list? Are you crazy? But let me tell you this, Johnny Unitas during his time stood out as the best quarterback during that era, and it's not even close. 10 Pro Bowls, 8 All-Pros, 3 NFL MVPs, 3 NFL championships with a Super Bowl, and 4-time passing leader and passing touchdown leader. That's leading everybody as a quarterback, not even close. People talk about leading the 2-minute drill and being the clutch quarterback. Johnny Unitas invented that. I also believe Unitas is the only quarterback ever to have his number retired by 2 teams, the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens. Number 5, Otto Graham. Now we're going back even further with her. People talk about how annoying it was that Tom Brady seems to go to the Super Bowl every single year and ends up winning it. Imagine Tom Brady going to 10 straight Super Bowls and winning 7 of them. That's what Otto Graham did. That's how amazing this guy was. During a time where most people thought of the passing game as a gimmick, Otto Graham shredded their secondary and won NFL championships by throwing the pigskin. He was an All-Pro every single year he played and a 3-time NFL MVP. Number 4, Dan Marino. I've seen a lot of people hating on Dan Marino, saying that he peaked during his second year, he could never win the big game, that was his fault, he's overrated. Nothing could be further from the truth. The man was a shredder when it came to that right arm. The reason why he never won a championship wasn't because of him, was because of that defense, which was trash. Some of the worst defenses you could ever imagine he played with. Saying he peaked during his second year is like saying Tom Brady peaked during his 50 touchdown passes season, even though after that he went on to win 4 more Super Bowls. Throwing 48 touchdown passes, though, may not seem that insane today, but back then it was mind-boggling. To put in comparison, the former record was 36, and Dan Marino broke it by 12. To put that in perspective today, that'd be like a quarterback throwing 67 touchdown passes in 1 season. Top 10 quarterbacks of all time. Part 3, let's go! Honorable mention, Warren Moon, Roger Staubach, Steve Young, and Drew Brees. Number 3, Peyton Manning. 5-time NFL MVP, 14-time Pro Bowler, and 2-time Super Bowl champion. And if you wanted a quarterback who could make every single throw possible, it was Peyton Manning. The man broke the single passing touchdowns in a season record not once, but twice. People think Peyton is just a statistic guy. Not true. He is a winner. In fact, he's currently tied with Tom Brady right now for having the most fourth-quarter comebacks by a quarterback. Peyton was such an integral part of the Colts that the year he had to sit out because of injury, the Colts went from being Super Bowl contenders to picking first in the NFL draft. Number 2, Joe Montana. 8 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pros, 2 NFL MVPs, 4 Super Bowl championships, and 3 Super Bowl MVP titles. Joe made getting hit by a 300-pound defensive lineman while throwing a touchdown pass look easy. The man was a winner before he even came to the 49ers, having won a national championship with Notre Dame. Whenever you gave the ball to Joe Cool, he always found a way to win. Number 1, it's obvious. The most Pro Bowls, the most Super Bowl MVPs, the most Super Bowl championships than any other franchise in NFL history. He's simply the best. Even if you hate the man, there is no argument there. The Book of Job, probably the most controversial book in the Bible. Job is a man who has everything: health, wealth, and a big family. The devil comes up to God and tells him that Job only follows you because you have given him so much. God then tells this Lucifer that he may take everything away from him, except for his life. Job loses everything: his family, his wife tells him to curse God, his friends come up to him and tell him to repent of his sins, which he proclaims is innocent towards, and he even curses the day that he was born. Job cries out to God, but God reassures him of his good works and that everything has a purpose. Job submits himself to God and his will, and God justifies Job. God gives Job twice as much as he had before, and Job lives to be an old man full of days before he dies. This part of the Bible is always seen as the most controversial because so much is taken away from Job and for seemingly no reason, but there is a reason behind it. We are usually okay with just good, but God wants great for us, and we go along with the journey that he has set for us, no matter the hardships that are put in front of us. And we must also remember that rain falls upon the just and the unjust alike. Bad things can happen to anyone at any time, at any place, but we must remember to praise God and to stick with him and his plan through the good and through the bad. Naruto review. Dr. Bayo. Hipster story time. So back in the day, I used to get Shonen Jump's magazine coming in the mail, and I remember one time they came with the original Naruto prologue coming with it, and I watched it, and I was fascinated, and I became hooked on the show immediately. I remember watching this all the time on Toonami. Remember when Naruto went completely insane thinking Sasuke had died and let part of the Nine Tails out of him? I remember Zabuza, and I remember the Talk no Jutsu, which everybody hates, but I feel in this arc is done amazingly. The Chunin exams. This is when Naruto went from good to great. The introduction of all these new characters, the level of tension just escalates through the roof, and it has an arc for every single one of these new characters going along with it. Rock Lee vs. Gaara is one of the best fights in anime history. To me, it's the second best fight in the show, which we'll get to what number one is later. This is just an amazing arc. Everything about it is just perfect. The tension in this arc just seemed to always keep building and building and building. Even when their lives weren't on the line, things just made you sit on the edge of your seat and keep wondering what's going to happen next. The Konoha Garage and the Chunin exams always felt like two parts of the same exact arc. You can't watch one without the other. So to me, it feels like just one arc entirely. Naruto of both these arcs had the most growth out of anybody. He went from fighting a lower tier fighter to fighting a higher tier fighter with Neji to fighting the strongest fighter at the time known to everyone with Gaara. Orochimaru is one of the most disgusting characters, but one you're just fascinated with how evil the man is. The death of the third Hokage is one of the most emotional moments in the series. I love the Neji versus Naruto fight, and I love the message behind it that hard work beats talent, even though later on the show they would lose that entirely. Search for Tsunade is not a bad arc by any means, but it does kind of feel a step back from the Chunin exams because the level of tension is not quite as high as it was during those other arcs. Tsunade is a great character, and her actions with Naruto are hilarious. This isn't, again, a bad arc by any means. It's very, very good, just not the same quality as the other one. Sasuke finally did it. He turned heel and joined a boy band. Much like the Chunin exams, every character has something to do, and the level of tension trying to recover Sasuke keeps going up and up and up when you think each character is going to die or be seriously injured. There's something for each of the characters, but to me, the best fight in the series wasn't Gaara versus Rock Lee, it's Naruto versus Sasuke at the end. Emotion thrown behind every punch by Sasuke and Naruto, you feel it, and in the end, when Naruto loses, to me it's one of the most shocking moments in anime history. I still remember thinking to myself, no way Naruto's going to lose. In the end, when he does, and Sasuke leaves, it just makes you feel like, wow, anything can happen on this show. Why can't most college coaches make it in the NFL? For every one of your Pete Carrolls or Jimmy Johnsons, there seems to be about a dozen college head coaches who try to transfer to the NFL and just simply can't make it. Urban Meyer completely failed, and even Nick Saban had to go back to college to coach. To put it simply, it's because you go from being a dictator in college to being a leader in the NFL. You might think, what's the difference? Well, if you're a dictator, what you say goes. Guys won't argue with you in college. Guys won't talk back. They're on scholarship. If they do, they're done for. In the NFL, guys are making millions of dollars. You start screaming at them, you better be prepared they might scream at you right back. It's also the difference between being a motivator and being a strategist. A strategist is going to come up with strategies and ideas to help the team win, and motivator is going to go in there and give a good halftime speech in order for this team to be successful. Now, you need both to win in both the NFL and in college, but you're going to be heavily more into strategy in the NFL versus motivation in college. The worst college coach to go to the NFL was Bobby Petrino, who left 3 weeks before the NFL season was going to be over to become the head coach of Arkansas. Top 10 action movies of all time, Part 1, let's go! Ninjas! Number 10, Lethal Weapon. It's just been revoked. That's actually the sequel. Lethal Weapon stars Danny Glover and Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson plays a cop who everybody thinks is insane and is constantly going around fighting everybody. So unfortunately, Mel Gibson doesn't have to do too much acting in this. I'm pretty sure this is the first big buddy cop movie, where two cops from completely different backgrounds team up together to go after bad. This is 80s action at its best. Cheesy, but very fun, and something you cannot stop watching once you start. Number 9, Rambo Part 2. A lot of people confuse this one for the first one. The first one is much more of a drama with a little bit of action. This is an action movie, and it's awesome. Stallone is released from prison and put on a mission to rescue a bunch of POWs from the Vietnam War. And while he does, he goes out and he fights the biggest enemy of all, the Russian. This is Stallone at his best. Plot is very simple, but every second of this movie is awesome. If you've ever played Metal Gear Solid, you can definitely tell that this movie was a huge inspiration for those games. Number 8, The Raid Redemption. Reading may seem like a sin when it comes to action movies, especially while watching a foreign film, but I promise you, watching this one, it's 100% worth it. Cops have to go into an apartment complex and constantly fight a bunch of bad. The fights in this movie seem more like a horror film than it should be in an action movie, as it feels so tight being in the apartment complex, constantly having to fight your way out of it. There's no way to run, there's nowhere to go, you have to fight and you have to survive. If you want a movie with intense fight scenes that never takes the foot off the gas pedal, this is the movie for you. Number 7, The Legend of the Drunken Master. I promise we're not promoting alcohol in this at all. No. But have you ever seen a movie or TV show where one of the guys gets very drunk and all of a sudden just turns into Bruce Lee and is fighting everybody? They're parodying this series. I love Jackie Chan. He's easily the funniest and most inventive and creative martial artist you're ever going to see in your entire life. Jackie's awesome and so are the fight scenes. He even does his own stuff. There's even a scene in this movie where Jackie falls on hot, burning coal, and which is real, that Jackie actually got burned by. Legend of the Drunken Master is awesome. Go watch it. Top 10 action movies of all time. Part 2. Let's go! Number 6, The Matrix. I know Kung Fu. I love this first movie. I didn't really like either of the sequels, or I hadn't even seen the fourth one. But this movie to me is amazing. When you really break it down, this one was pretty easy to digest, and the action scenes are absolutely amazing. Every punch, every kick, every ounce of sweat, every drop of blood, you feel it when it comes to this fighting in this movie. Every character is impactful. This is an amazing movie. If you somehow have not seen it, do yourself a favor and go watch it. Number 5, Rocky 4. Yeah, I did it! I love Stallone. That's the only reason why I'm making fun of the guy. This is my favorite Rocky movie. It feels more like an MTV music video than it does an actual movie, but honestly, it works in its favor. Every montage gets you hyped up, and it makes you want to go out there and do 100 push-ups once you're done. The fights are amazing. The end fight is absolutely ridiculous, but nobody can sit there and watch it and not tell me they did not enjoy it. It's awesome. Go watch. Number 4, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Of all the martial arts movies, this has been the most forgotten. If you've ever wondered what it could be like if they took Dragon Ball Z fights and put them to an actual movie, this is the one. They're still out there enough to be fantastic, but still be somewhat grounded when it comes to the punishment the characters take to be enjoyable. If you love Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, or action movies in general, or hand-to-hand combat movies, this is the one for you. Go watch it. Top 10 action movies of all time. Part 3. Let's go! Number 3, Enter the Dragon. Boys, don't hit me back. This movie's the one that made Bruce Lee an absolute star in America. He already was overseas, but this is the one brought to America that made him a giant star. This inspired an entire generation of martial artists, as well as a well-known video game called Mortal Kombat. It's a classic. Anybody who likes martial arts movies, go watch them. Number 2, Undisputed 3. I must become the most complete fighter in the world. Yuri, the main character of this movie, was considered the bad guy in the last one. Yuri's been humbled and has healed his leg. But then once it is healed, he enters a tournament, and he proceeds to take his foot and stick it up the rear end of every bad guy within a 100-mile radius. The fights are amazing, and this movie is amazing. Number 1, 300. This is Sparta! If you grew up in the early days of YouTube, you had that burned into your mind through those horrible remakes. This movie honestly speaks for itself. Once you turn it on, you can't turn it off. It's amazing. If you have problems with motivation, with working out, go watch any of these movies. Afterwards, I promise you, you're going to want to do 1,000 push-ups and bench press over 500 pounds. Ranking and review. Let's go! Athena! You conspire against me? God of War 4. Don't think because this is last on the list, this is a bad game. Not even remotely true. I just didn't like the tank controls. The story could have been a little bit shorter, though I did like it. I love the atmosphere, the soundtrack, and the boss fights in this game are amazing and worth your time. God of War 3. After the cliffhanger of 2, this to me was the most hyped game of my life. This is the best when it comes to combat and boss fight. Hercules is still my favorite boss fight in the entire series. The story does suffer. I know most people don't care, but to me it didn't show up until the very end of the game. This game was the perfect way to cap off Kratos' original trilogy. Go play it. The original God of War. Where it all began. This game has everything you want. Action, adventure, and a great story. Everybody has a stereotype that Kratos is just someone who screams all the time. Though that does happen, he is a man on a journey in this game in order to rid himself of the memories of the past, not for revenge. If you've never played the first one, you're doing yourself a disservice because it still holds up today. Go play it. Number 1, God of War 2. This is probably my favorite game of all time. Now this game is a revenge tale of Kratos going after Zeus. Everything you could ever want from a game, this has it. Action, adventure, puzzles, bosses, and an amazing story. This is a tale of revenge and the dark places it takes Kratos, and I can't recommend it enough for everyone to play. 10 out of 10. God of War review. The Forgotten 3. God of War Ascension. Yeah, even I forgot about this one. This one goes back even further than we've ever been in any games being a prequel. The combat's great as normal, but there really isn't anything that deep when it comes to the story. It's a good game, but not on the same par as the other ones. What it does have, though, and I wish they would bring back, is online. That was fun. God of War, Chains of Olympus. This is the first PSP game. It has great combat as normal. The interesting thing about this game, though, is the story. Kratos constantly hears the voice of his dead daughter, Calliope, and he eventually gets a chance to go be with her, but he has to give up all of his power when he does. But when he does, it's revealed that the main villain is going to destroy the world. So Kratos never had a choice to begin with. He gets back all his power and has to leave his daughter, leaving the tragedy, adding to the tragedy that is Kratos. This game is great, and yes, for those who do not know, Kratos actually had a child before Atreus, Calliope. God of War, Ghost of Sparta. Now this is actually my second favorite of all the God of War games. To me, it's one of the most emotional stories that Kratos is going after his long-lost brother, who was taken by the gods when he was a child. Kratos was feeling guilt, even though he was a kid and couldn't do anything, and the gods took his brother because they believed he was a child of prophecy who would destroy the world. They ended up choosing very poorly when it chose his brother instead of Kratos. This is impactful, emotional, and if you've never played this game and you love action-adventure, go play Ghost of Sparta. I don't like about Ultra Instinct. Now, I like the design of Ultra Instinct, I like the feeling of it, but I hate the idea behind it. Now, the idea behind Ultra Instinct is that you let your body react to all the fighting. You don't think at all, but that goes contrary to everything in Dragon Ball, as they always had an idea or a concept behind fighting a villain, took turns, did what they had to in order to win. Now, if you've ever done sports or any sort of competition, you know how vital it is to keep ahead of the game. You can have the body of Brock Lesnar, but if you have the mind of a toddler, you're going to go 0 for life in your fights. Take the Gohan versus Cell fight. They had initially the same exact power level, but Gohan did not want to fight, so Cell beat the crap out of him because his mind and body were separated. Another fun little fact about Ultra Instinct is, if you ever looked up Super Saiyan 5, it was a fan-made design after the end of GT and what possibly it could look like. This is Super Saiyan 5. Tell me if the two look a little similar. Top 10 Dragon Ball Z games of all time. Part 1, let's go! Number 10, Burst Limit. It sucks putting this game so low because the potential this game had was outstanding. Allegedly during pre-production, they had to rush this game through, which is why they couldn't have the Majin Buu saga, and why so many of the cutscenes seem to repeat over and over again with the same animation. I love the action with it, I love the art style. This is still a very good game, and one definitely worth your time. Number 9, Raging Blast 2. I always felt like the Raging Blast series were the unofficial sequels to Budokai Tenkaichi series. There's really no story mode with this game, and it takes forever to unlock all the characters, but it still is fun. This game came out before Super, so the big selling point was Vegeta was a Super Saiyan 3, Broly was a Super Saiyan 3, everybody got a Super Saiyan 3 in this game. It is fun, and it's a cool game to play. Number 8, Supersonic Warrior. Didn't have a DS, so I never played the sequel to this game. A lot of people enjoyed it though, and said it was better than the first one. Imagine Fighters, but on Game Boy, with amazing what-if stories. That is this game. It's fun flying around, it's fun beating each other up, the combat's cool as always. I've seen they master in this game, and it's no different in this one. It's great. If you still somehow have a Game Boy, play this game. Number 7, Super Dragon Ball Z. No, not Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Z Super, the video game. This is made by the guy who made Street Fighter 2, and it shows. The combat's amazing. This is the most underrated of all Dragon Ball Z games, and a hidden gem. Mastering the combat takes a little while, but once you master it, it is one of the best beat-em-up action games you can ever play with Dragon Ball Z. Go play it. Top 10 Dragon Ball Z games of all time. Part 2, let's go! Number 6, Xenoverse 2. The game that will never die. This came out in 2016, but is still going strong in 2022 because of DLC. That has its positives and negatives. It's a huge roster that will continue to grow until Xenoverse 3, maybe in 20 years, comes out. It's fun. The arenas you fight in are huge. It's a long, grindy game, but it's still a lot of fun once you finally get to the combat. Go up as chaos as you have like a bunch of people together fighting against this major villain. But it is fun. It's still a great game. Go play. Number 5, Budokai 3. I know everybody's going to be pissed at me for putting this so low on the list. It is a great game. It's groundbreaking. It was game-changing when it came out. It's still a lot of fun. The thing that drove me nuts was how long those dragon rushes take. Essentially, you picked a random button and so did your opponent, and if they picked the right one, it canceled your attack. If not, you kept going until they were able to complete. This game is amazing and definitely worth playing. Don't think because it's low on the list, it's a bad game. It is not. I'm not mad at you if you have number 1 on your list. Number 4, Infinite Warp. This is easily the hardest Dragon Ball Z game ever. This essentially is Budokai 4, has a bigger roster, has a couple more things to do. I enjoy this game just a little bit more. That's why it beats out Budokai 3, though I understand fully if you have it the other way around. I just enjoyed this game a lot. If you enjoy difficult combat, a difficult hard game, this is the one for you. Top 3 Dragon Ball Z games of all time. Part 3, let's go! Number 3, Legacy of Goku 2. This was a game back in the day, played on a little Game Boy Advance. This is what Dragon Ball Z Kakarot should have been. Fun RPG that wasn't super grindy, but had a good leveling up system to it. Soundtrack, the world, everything about this game felt perfect for an open world Dragon Ball Z game. That aspect, it's still never been topped. If you can get your hands on a Game Boy or an emulator, play this game. Number 2, Fighters. The best 2D Dragon Ball Z fighting game of all time. Not even close. Everything about it is just perfect. The action feels fast-paced, it's accurate to the character. The game has truly been improved by the patches, adding more characters and DLC towards it, now having not just 3v3, you do 1v3, 1v1, you do whatever you want in this. Enter 21's great, the story is so-so. I wish they could add more costumes and key battles to this. That would have made this probably number 1 on the list, but for what it is, it's amazing. Number 1, Budokai Tenkaichi. If you ever look at the price of this thing on eBay, it's worth like $300. A huge roster that feels so perfect for Dragon Ball Z that modders are still adding on to this day. Shows you how much passion and love people have for this game. If you've never played it, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's awesome.